Hello, everyone. Or maybe no one. I don't know. I can't tell who's on, who's not. It's kind of cool. So hi. I'm gonna give it maybe like a minute or two. If you are on, just drop a comment in the live. That was Brooks, my cat. Give me 1 second. There's his tail. Come on. Brooks, you have to do this right now. Life. Alright. Sorry about that. So, if anyone's on, leave a comment in the live, whatever, the chat, so I can see, because I'm not using the YouTube interface. I'm on a different platform. But I'll give it another minute. So, hey, hi Bryce. Cool. All right, so I know this is probably lagged a little bit, but I will definitely be answering questions and dragging those comments over onto the screen as this talk goes, or as this sesh goes. And so I definitely would love for you guys to, ask your questions whenever they come into your minds. And I'll do my best to answer anything, or leave comments, or leave, whatever statements you want. Hopefully positive things. Okay, so let's get started. So, welcome everyone. For those of you who might not know me, my name is Liz. I am a full-time mental health therapist. I am a licensed social worker, and I live in Brooklyn. I'm based out of New York City. My full-time job is working for a foster care organization in Brooklyn, New York. I work with clients ages 3 to 21, and I provide individual and family therapy, and I'm trained in the modalities of cognitive behavioral therapy as well as functional family therapy. I also dabble in play therapy and a lot of other theoretical approaches. So I moved to New York in 2014 to pursue my master's degree. Was very grateful and blessed to get a job right out of grad school, and started working for a juvenile justice program in New York, working with adolescents and their families and providing family therapy. Later on, I transitioned over to my current role. Hi, Amir. But so my whole education is in mental health. So this is also me coming to you guys as a professional. But ever since I was in grad school, I've had my own experiences when I was younger with mental health, and it kind of is what led me to pursue this career path. But ever since I was in grad school, I kind of started ideating Mentl. At the time, it didn't have the name Mentl. It didn't have any name. But I knew I ultimately wanted to create a platform, and hopefully something that would eventually become my future private practice, to kind of normalize mental health, but in a different way. I think there's, as the years go on and as more social issues continue to happen, I think mental health is a topic that can often be associated with a lot of different things, and to be honest, it's starting to become more popular to talk about, and that's amazing. But for me, at the time, there wasn't a lot of things that I really resonated with. And this isn't me, saying those things aren't good, or they're too good, or they're bad, or whatever. It's just it wasn't a fit for me. It wasn't something that spoke to me. And I don't know if it was the branding, or if it was the language, or what it was, but it was off. And, as I continued up throughout school and my career afterwards, I had conversations with different friends and different people, and I ultimately learned that I wasn't the only one who felt that way. I think there's a lot of stereotypes that, come to mind when the topic of mental health comes up, and, people either think you're crazy, or it's corny to have, to advocate for mental health, or it doesn't exist at all. And there's so many different reasons as to why these stereotypes exist. But at the end of the day, everyone has mental health. And when I say everyone has mental health. What I mean by that is that we all have emotions, good or bad, like I'm anxious as heck right now, but I'm feeling, and that's my mental health. And there's days where I'm feeling, really happy, and that's my mental health. And there's days I'm feeling really sad, and that's also my mental health, and that's okay. And it kind of encompasses all of our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our cognitions, and everything that has to go on inside of our body, or inside of our minds, sorry. So eventually I started thinking, how can, we break down these stereotypes? How can we make mental health cool? And I don't mean to say cool as like a trendy thing, because I know sometimes mental health can be used in a trendy way, and that's a whole nother topic of discussion. But how can we make it resonate with people who are like me, or people who have similar interests as me? And so that's kind of what pushed me to start thinking about mental. And something for me, and something for, I think, a whole lot of us who are tuning in right now, we're all very creative people. I consider myself a creative, and I try to incorporate creativity in my work as a private practice. And so one thing I do is try to look through the perspective of meeting people where they're at, right? Not everyone can meditate. Not everyone can practice deep breathing and have, positive results from it. And that's just the honest truth. A lot of these textbook mental health practices are amazing, but they just don't simply work for everyone. And just, hanging out with my friends and people that I really look up to and respect, what I've grown to learn is that we're all using our creative outlets essentially in ways to cope with our mental health. There are ways to express ourselves and our feelings, whether we are fully aware of that and do it intentionally or not intentionally. It happens. And so that's kind of how this whole platform came to be. In the future, and shout out coronavirus, but my hope was to launch this later on this year, because I wanted it to be my private practice. But things happen. Shout out to Brooks over here. And opportunities arise, and it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I felt, we can launch it now, and here we are. We're talking about mental health. We're going to have these amazing Mentl.Seshes that are going to be happening throughout the month. And we're going to be digging into creativity and just how we can meet people where they're at for mental health, and how we can just really, provide support and resources in a way that are down to earth, that are sensible, that aren't stuffy, and they're not sugar-coated. Because to be honest, right, mental health isn't all rainbows and butterflies, and we do struggle at times, and it's perfectly okay, and it's perfectly okay to express that in different ways other than just what certain books or certain accounts might tell us. So I'm going to talk a little bit about creativity for mental health. Does anyone have any questions or anything at all that you guys want to ask? I see a cat, Elisa. I'm going to add you here. Elisa has a cat emoji, so I'm going to put that on the screen because it's cool. But creativity for mental health covers so many different realms, and I am so excited to have so many different creatives coming on this Mentl.Sesh series throughout the month of May, from all different walks of life. My friend Amir will be coming on, who has, he has worked in the streetwear realm for many years. He also has his own personal brand called By Idle Hours, which makes phenomenal journals, so I highly recommend you check that out. And we'll be talking about how he kind of incorporated his two worlds into one to advocate for mental health and mental wellness. I also have my friend Christian, and I also have my girl Deanna coming on later this month to talk about just artistic expression for mental health. Coloring, art, those are great ways that we can express our feelings, our emotions, just through color, through, textures, shading, gradients, all things like that are ways that we can non-verbally kind of communicate how we're feeling at that time. Or in the past or in the future, whatever our goals might be. So I think just in general, being able to talk to them is going to be really dope, because we'll be able to actually sit down and understand more in depth of what they create and maybe why they create it, and the mental thought process that goes through that whole their whole journey and just how they do what they do. So I'm excited for that one. And then also we have Ariel Foxy coming on, who is a wellness and fitness trainer, and he, is just someone I met last year who not only, is amazing and kicks your butt in the gym, but he also advocates for mental health by understanding the ways and the mental aspects that go into working out, and, understanding that journey is not only physical, it is also mental. And so just things like this where we can kind of facilitate conversations in a natural way that are down to earth, and simply just, kind of encompass a lot of other interests besides just one lane. So I actually have another comment from Elisa. Go ahead. Okay, look at you, Elisa. All right. For someone seeking mental health services, how can they start, especially now with the pandemic? Do therapists offer any virtual options? So yeah, they definitely can. Many therapists actually offer telehealth services, which is essentially a session through Skype or through FaceTime or whatever video chat app that works for both of you. So that's one way to continue services and get mental health support right now during this time. I think seeking out a therapist that's a good fit for you is a little bit of a challenge. It's essentially you have to go shopping for a person that you feel gets you. And that's hard, and especially if you're someone who doesn't have a background in mental health or doesn't even know where to begin. How do you do that? And so, there's a couple resources that I talk about on my platform. One being psychologytoday.com is a great tool. You can go on there. They have a search engine. You can filter by insurance, gender, location, theoretical approaches, and really just find someone that speaks to you. And each therapist has their own little bio, so I really encourage you to go on and read all those bios and reach out to multiple people and just be honestly transparent with them and say, hey, like I'm, shopping for a therapist right now and I need to find someone that's a good fit for me. And that will help them also know that they really need to be on their A game as a therapist. And you going into the session, you're transparent, and if you end up not feeling a vibe with them, that's totally cool, and you can go try and find someone else. You have to shop for someone. Another tool is called Find My Wellbeing, which is amazing. They're actually a therapist matchmaking service. So for those of you who might not be as familiar with what types of therapy approaches there are, because there's different models that different therapists practice with their clients, and it might be helpful to have someone who understands that match you with a therapist that practices something that will work for the symptoms you're experiencing. So they're great. Find My Wellbeing, at My Wellbeing on Instagram. All you have to do is go to their website. You fill out like a 5-minute questionnaire. Then they'll call you and talk a little bit more in depth about what you're looking for and what you're experiencing as far as mental health goes. And they will then email you a list of a couple options. So that's another great tool. And also you can call your insurance, and if you have insurance, you can give them a call. And they'll tell you which practices or which therapists accept your insurance. And another option would be to go to Open Path Collective if you don't have insurance, because they offer sliding scale rates, and sliding scale rates are therapists who will basically let you pay via check or cash, and they sometimes will lower their rates if they know that you don't have insurance, because therapy is expensive. So thank you. That's a great question. So yeah, I talked a lot about what mental is, and hopefully as we continue, it'll develop into a lot more, and it'll make more sense to everyone. Right now it makes a lot of sense to me, and I hope it's making sense to you, but we will eventually get there. Yes. So let's go. Another question. Do you have any advice for a creative that's struggling to produce work during this time? Yeah. So with this question, this is a good question. I think sometimes for creatives, it's difficult to feel like you're being productive and you're getting a lot of work done when you have maybe deadlines to meet, or you have, certain jobs that are coming up that you have to, get stuff created and done. But sometimes, we're just not feeling motivated, and we're just not feeling like our creative juices are essentially flowing. And that's perfectly fine. And what I would recommend is maybe to take a step back, because sometimes forcing ourselves into something isn't necessarily the most beneficial thing to do for ourselves. And you guys probably heard me talk about this a lot, but I compare human beings to soda bottles quite often. And this goes for this, like if you're pushing yourself to the limit or you're forcing something, you're never going to produce your best work. Sometimes you just need to take a step back, reevaluate, and find things that spark motivation for you. And it might not even be that. You might just need rest. You might just need to relax. So I think, just taking a step back, trying to let go of any of those thoughts that you feel like you need to be producing work, and just think about what it is you need at that time. What might be causing that struggle for you. Just understanding, okay, do I just need to have a self-care day and turn off all technology and take the day off from work if possible and just focus on me? That's perfectly fine. Because if you're at 100%, then you're going to produce 100%. If you're not at 100% and you're only at 50%, your work's probably going to be at 50% or less. Let's be real. So you got to be good, and you got to focus on yourself. And so finding what it is that's triggering those feelings of, not feeling motivated or not feeling creative, it's okay. And it happens. Just know that you're not alone. It happens to a lot of us. And that's a really cool question, because I think that's something that I hope a lot of the other creatives that are coming on this series will be able to share and give some more insight, because this is my advice as a therapist and also as a person. Sometimes I just need to put everything to the side and sit and just watch a movie or play Animal Crossing, right? Or do something that has nothing to do with me producing work. Just to kind of let my mind rest. And sometimes the more you think about the fact that you're not producing work makes you more anxious. And so then because of that anxiety being built up, it's even harder. So you have to just focus on you. That's my advice. But hopefully we will have other creatives coming on, and they will be sharing their advice too. So let's see, any other questions here? Oh, I got a nice bouquet of flowers from Julian. Thank you, Julian. Alrighty, all right. So let's see here. Okay, Elisa asked another question. Yes, facts. Being a creative, we're always experiencing highs and lows because we tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves. That's absolutely valid. We definitely are our own worst enemy at times, and it's our mind and how we think about ourselves. And I think it's just being able to take a step back and say that, it's okay that we sometimes don't produce things, and it's okay to take breaks. Especially for a lot of us who maybe are based out of New York City, where we're literally going all the time. It's challenging to not have our minds also be going all the time, because there's constantly things stimulating our brains and stimulating our thoughts. Whether it be social media, events happening, going outside and just seeing things well, obviously not right now, but going outside in general and seeing a lot of people moving around, a lot of activity happening, or, going to work and just feeling pressure from your bosses who are, come on, do this, do that. And I think we just have to sometimes be able to acknowledge, like, we're not always going to be on 100%, and that's okay. And we also have to talk about this more as creatives, like, it's hard. Like, I'll be honest, like, this is me talking as Liz, not as a therapist right now, but going on to social media sometimes and, trying not to compare myself because I feel like other people might be putting out more content or, having more projects going on and feeling like I'm not doing enough or I'm doing too much sometimes, and learning to set those boundaries as well, wanting to take a step back and just say no to things to take care of myself. Because I know, ultimately if I do too much, I'm going to burn myself out. And then I'm going to get to a point where I'm not going to be able to do anything because I'm not going to be in a good place. And I think those are conversations we need to start facilitating more with each other in creative communities to just, one, be able to support each other, but also just normalize the fact that it's okay to chill out sometimes and that we're not always 100% productive. Let's see here. Okay, Julianne, coming from my vegan friend. Do you believe what you eat can help with your mental health? Absolutely. And I'm hoping to have someone come on in the future of this series to be able to talk more about that, because I am by no means a nutritionist and I by no means eat healthy. I have so many tubs of ice cream in our freezer right now. I blame Elisa for this because of Van Leeuwen, but 120%, just as much as how those nutrients affect our physical health, those nutrients that we put into our body affects our mental health. There is science and studies and research done that shows, when there's feelings associated with our diets and how we eat. And, there's people out there who struggle with body image and who struggle with, eating disorders and serious food-related mental health issues. And one thing that I can say is that maintaining a healthy diet and doing good things for our nutritional values and our physical health also plays a good role in our mental health, because we know that we're not only taking care of our physical, but that then means we're also taking care of our mental, because we'll feel good about our physical health, if that makes sense. So yeah, food can definitely help. And I also think too that, there's no one specific diet that's great. I think there's different diets for different people, and it's just about like kind of finding your grind and finding what really matches for you and meeting people where they're at. Let's see here. How can people deal with being anxious when they go out and see people not wearing masks? That's a good question. My first question would be to try your best to maintain the required social distance of 6 feet. But also try the best you can to limit yourself from even going out. I understand we have to go out for groceries and stuff, but at the end of the day, we can only control what we're doing. And that's one thing that we have to keep in the back of our minds is, are we wearing gloves? Are we wearing masks? Are we taking our own precautions? Unfortunately, we can't control the actions of others, but we can control our behavior. So if we're seeing those people, maybe just like crossing the street if possible, or maybe just like kind of doing your best to keep your distance so that way you keep yourself safe and you can control your behavior in that situation. And also just, doing your due diligence to make sure that you're doing everything possible to keep yourself healthy and good during this time, by washing your hands and following all the guidelines. Thank you, Colin, for that question. Oh, here's a good one from Ange. How important is it to take a social media break? I would say it's pretty important. There's no right or wrong answer. I think it really depends on how we use social media to begin with. Are we following accounts that inspire us, or are we following accounts that trigger us? Are we, spending a lot of time on it, or are we only going on each day for a few minutes, checking in, logging off? We can control how we use these apps at the end of the day, and we can control what we want to see, and that has a lot to do with how we reinforce certain things. So if there's something that's maybe triggering to you, and just because someone else liked it or it has X amount of likes or comments, that's in your control to not engage and maybe mute it or, unfollow that person if you have to. And I think, at the end of the day, we have to remember that our mental health comes first and how we use social media. So yeah, social media breaks are important. It's good to always just take a detox if you can, and to just really be in the moment and try not to let yourself get too absorbed in the virtual world and stay connected to the real world. And I think right now it's challenging because it's kind of the only way we can be connected to one another, except through FaceTiming and calling. So it's hard right now, but just also making sure that we're aware of our triggers and knowing okay, if I see a post, how does that make me feel? And understanding what are those sensations in our body. Are we getting angry? Are we thinking a lot about it? Are we, maybe getting nervous or sweaty, or is it making us sad? How are those things making us feel? And really kind of tapping into our emotions and our response to that and acting accordingly. If it's something that you can do to eliminate seeing those things on your feed, then by all means, do what you have to do. And if that means just taking a break for a couple days too, that's totally fine too. There's no really golden rule, but it's just more so about being mindful of how we use these apps. I like this question. Thank you, Umar. Do you have any recommendations of companies or resources where people can volunteer their time and efforts even if they are not professionally involved in the mental health industry? Absolutely. So a lot of nonprofits love volunteers. And that's because a lot of these nonprofits do just different events where they just need people to go and help spread their message. And a lot of the time with the volunteers, what they will do is they'll train you and they'll teach you what their mission statement is and who and what populations they serve and what resources they have. And so they'll essentially make you an expert in their whole way that they operate, and you'll be able to be essentially a spokesperson for them or volunteer your time in any way, shape, or form, whether that be, maybe through food banks or through going out into the community and handing out pamphlets or doing something like that can still help raise awareness where it's not as clinical focused and having to actually change someone's mental health clinically. So some of the organizations that I love, the JED Foundation, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, To Write Love on Our Arms, they're all great. Who else? The Buddy Project, Gabby. There's ways that everyone can really get involved, whether it just be through creating content on social media and sharing, their messages or, texting information to people. The crisis text line even, sometimes takes volunteers, and people don't have to have master's degrees to, get trained into understanding how to resolve crisis and learn the crisis model. So, there's so many opportunities out there, and you can go to, any nonprofits that really speak to you on their website and really check out and see what volunteer opportunities that they have available. So, cool. Umar, Elisa, let's see here. Okay, I'm adding this question because it's funny and it gives us a little break. Is mint chocolate chip a top 3 flavor for us? Yes, it is. Mentl loves mint chocolate chip. Jacob with a question. Good exercises after a hard day of work. This one we will revisit when Ariel comes on because he is the expert in that. I am not. But for me, jumping jacks, I think anything to get your blood flowing and get those endorphins released can really be good. And jumping jacks, push-ups, sit-ups, the basics are something that I do every day, and I enjoy them, but I'm by no means a fitness expert, so don't take everything I say or take everything I say with a grain of salt. Oh, let's see here. Ooh, this is a good question. Do you have any tips on how someone can tell their therapist that they don't think it's a good fit? So, I actually love this question. So, absolutely. When you're with a therapist, one of the things you can bring up in therapy are your goals. You know, sometimes different therapists operate in different ways. And if there's something that you specifically want to work on in therapy, you can tell them. You can sit in session and say, hey, you know, I'm struggling with this, and this is something right now that's a big priority for me that I want to focus on. And a good therapist will say, okay, let's visit this. Like, how can we tackle this right now? Because it seems like it's something that's high on your list that is really important right now. And, you know, understanding the fact that if we kind of trickle down and work on the most important factor, it might also help relieve some of the other symptoms of other things that are happening. And so I think just having open-ended conversations with your therapist, and it's not easy, but at the same time, your therapist is a professional person who knows that they're not for everyone. I'm not a therapist for everyone, and that's totally fine. And if someone came to me and said, hey, Liz, I don't think we're vibing right now in therapy. I would first, see like what I could do, what could make that experience better for them. And, maybe ask like, would they try 1 or 2 more sessions? And if no, that's fine. I would offer to help them maybe find a new therapist, or maybe talk a little bit more about what they're looking for in a therapist and see if there's any other people at our agency or in the private practice that might be a better fit for them. So I think it's just really like understanding that a good therapist and someone who should have this professional mindset should know that they're not going to be a match for everyone, and in order for them to be able to fully help you, they also need to learn what is a good match for you. And so just communicating your needs, just like if we have friends who aren't are triggering us or doing something that we don't like, we have to have those open conversations with them and communicate those things, because unfortunately people, no matter who you are, we can't read each other's minds. We can read, body language, we can read like tone of voice, we can get some clues that way, but to really be able to help someone, sometimes we just have to speak up and tell them, this is what works best for me. And also, that's another thing with therapy is a good therapist will take time to learn your learning styles. They'll take time to learn what your core values are. They'll also take time to get to know you and what you're interested in. And that's okay if you don't want to share a lot of information with them, but sometimes when they're asking about that stuff, it's really because they want to learn how they can tailor their sessions to fit you best. So I hope that answers some questions for you, that question. Okay. When your headspace feels like it's met capacity, how can you be a good support for your friends while also taking care of yourself? I like this question a lot. So the most important part of this question is just being able to recognize what your threshold is, and also being able to understand when you're getting to the point where you feel like you're at capacity mentally. And just understanding that it's okay to not always have to be the best type of support. We can still support our friends, through text messages, just saying, hey, I'm here if you need anything. I'm not feeling 100% right now, so I'm just communicating this in advance. Just keeping in mind that at the end of the day, we all can't read each other's minds. We don't really know what's going on. So just as much as it's important to communicate other people's needs, it's important to communicate your needs as well. And it's also okay to ask for support if you need support on your end. You can still be a good support at arm's length. Sometimes, there's different levels of support. Being able to be the friend that, might be right there over someone's house if something happens, or just maybe being a friend who can FaceTime or call or send a little Grubhub coupon, you know? Like, there's different ways that we can support each other that, you know, require different amounts of effort. And I think it really depends, too, on how you are as a person, how your friends are as people, and finding something like a happy medium where you can kind of say to your friend, hey, you know, I'm not my 100% today, but I'm here if you need anything, but just know if I'm not very talkative, I'm also dealing with my own stuff at the moment. And that's perfectly fine to do. Because at the end of the day, you can't help someone 100% if you're not at 100%. Let's go this, let's go. Okay. Yes, yoga is great for working out. Sorry, I'm just reading through the comments. How is everyone? Yeah, let's ask this question from Idle Hours, who will be visiting us, will be live with us next Friday, and I'm so excited to have Amir. And just to be completely transparent, I am so excited to have other people join the live with me and not have to do this ever again by myself, because it's very anxiety provoking for me to do this one-on-one. So how is everyone? I hope you all are feeling as good as you can in this moment. And I hope that you're, you know, taking care of yourselves in whatever way works best for you that's healthy. Okay, so I'm going to leave it up to you guys. We have about 10 minutes left-ish. I was trying to shoot for 45 minutes, but if we don't hit 45 minutes, that's totally fine. Does anybody want to see my cat? He's on the couch next to me sleeping. There he is. But no, I'm in all seriousness, I'm really excited to have our guests come on, you know, through this series, and just to be able to really hone in on who they are, share the stories of everyone, and kind of create a more just sensible conversation around mental health, and really incorporate it more naturally into conversation where it doesn't feel really hard to tell people we're not feeling great, or to, you know, go up to someone and ask how they're feeling without them just saying, yeah, I'm okay. You know, like, how are you really feeling? And have that person feel comfortable enough to tell you. That's the goal with all of this, is just to kind of incorporate these conversations into our everyday lives, and in creative ways, in a sense of how we're already using our creativity, and kind of showing how there are mental health ties in all of this. And we already are really doing it without just pointing it out. And I'm here to just kind of point it out, which will hopefully normalize it even more. So if anyone has any more questions, let me know. But I'm logging off, so please feel free to leave comments, questions, concerns below in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't, because I can't make a page for this. I can't make a self-titled page until I have 100 subscribers, so subscribe. And yeah, hit me up on the gram if you need anything. But next week we will have Amir coming on, and we will be talking about emotional expression, cognitive coping, and how journaling helps with both of those. And so I hope you guys join next week. In the meantime, if you want to journal, you should check out By Idle Hours and order a journal from him, because those are the coolest journals ever, and journaling's great. So we're going to have Amir next week. Tune in. Peace out. Stay healthy. And just be you. I don't know. I'm going to come up with a cool closing for this eventually, but bye, guys.